Hi, Diz. Yeah, I'm actually friends with them. I'm going to be meeting them in February in Manchester. So I am hopefully going to be doing an interview with them, and it'll be videoed, and I shall obviously upload it. Their band's called Ghost Bells, and the song is called Ghost. They haven't got many songs released. They're going on tour here in the UK next year. They're supporting, what's it called? Ashbury Heights. They're supporting Ashbury Heights. So I'm not sure of all the gigs that they're playing. I think I did share a post with the poster on, actually. Well, I have got my phone here. I can have a look. Bear with me. Sorry, guys. Okay, they're playing in York on the 4th of February, Glasgow on the 5th, Manchester on the 6th, which is the one that I'm going to, London on the 7th, and Bristol on the 8th of February. So I would recommend really going to see them. Have a listen to them and go and see them. Yes, Elle, much better than the Tommy Robinson intro, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah, if I get a copyright strike, I get a copyright strike. I've had a few anyway already, stuff that I've uploaded from Nine Inch Nails and various other bands that I've seen. So, yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that link, Draka. Really appreciate it. Have a quick look who's in the chat. I see you've all been chatting away, which is fabulous. Diz and Chris C, thank you very much for being the mods tonight. Watch out, guys. They are both on the ball. Who else? We've got Elle, lovely to see you. Thank you for joining. Let's have a look. Alex Roberts, lovely to see you. And Draka, obviously. Okay. And Peter Dencart, lovely to see you. Yes, Manchester. So I'm going to be in Manchester for that gig, most definitely. I really want to meet these guys. I think their music is awesome. It's my kind of goth music, EBM, electric body music. It's the kind of stuff that I really, really love when it comes to goth stuff. So well, I suppose you could say Nine Inch Nails are similar, but Combi Christ, the NV Nation, KMFDM, the bands in that sort of vein are all EBM goth music. So slightly different to sort of Sisters of Mercy and The Mission and Fields of the Nephilim and other goth bands. But I mean, there's so many different I don't want to say genres of goth, but different sort of types of goth. And goth has, grown over the years. I'm what you call a trad goth, a traditional goth. So what I wear, how I dress, how I do my makeup, most of the music I listen to is traditional goth. And then you get sort of all other different types of goths falling under that. I'll have to do a video on it and put up the images of them because it would be too confusing and difficult for me to try and explain what they all wear and what they look like and so on. So I wanted to start today with the story, sorry guys, from, where is it now? About Labour government and the, sorry, I just want to get up my account now on my other YouTube, on my other computer so that I can see any comments that come in. If you are watching, so that I can see any comments that come in. If you are watching, so that I, there we go. If you are watching, please give us a like. And if you're new to the channel, if you'd like to subscribe, that would be awesome. Thank you. So I want to talk about the new bill that Labour are putting through for protection for women and girls, or protection from violence of women and girls. I've seen quite a lot of uproar on my Facebook feed from various groups that I belong to and follow. And men are moaning. Basically, men are saying, but what about men? What about men? Yes, we know that men also suffer abuse. We are well aware of that. However, when you look at the majority of the police force, they are male. The protection of women and girls in the UK is a joke. It really is a joke. And then you have the fascists at the moment claiming they want to protect our women and girls, but they are still, abusing our women and girls. And I've talked about this. Yes, not all men, definitely not all men. Yes, it is, Chris C. It is part of the crime and policing bill. Hi, Miss Real, lovely to see you. Thank you for joining. I am a victim, now survivor, of SA, DV, SV, and GRAPE. And I'm sharing this with you. So if you are triggered by this kind of thing, you may want to just, maybe turn the sound down for a few minutes, probably a couple of minutes, and then listen again. I'll do a thumbs up when I finish talking about this. So, trigger warning, basically. I don't want anybody to be triggered by this. So I was being, hands around my throat. There had been other things. And this was before he left. This was also before my father passed away, very within the space of a few months. So he had grabbed me and I was on the bathroom floor and he had his in a headlock. And I just relaxed because I knew if I fought, I would be using more oxygen. And I just went limp because he would not be expecting that. So it was just like a reaction that I had. And then, luckily, because I'm quite tall, I have long arms and I reached down and grabbed his privates and pulled and squeezed as hard as I possibly could so that he would release me, and he did. And I then went and barricaded myself in my bedroom so he could not get to me. So I'm finished that bit now. That's the trigger warning bit. So anyway, I obviously, I didn't go to the police. I didn't contact them. Stuff was happening, so I had to go back to Liverpool to be with my mom and dad because my dad was, he was, it was just before he passed and he was palliative care at home. So we were all looking after him. And there was so much going on. And, my main concern was being there for my mom, my sister, and my dad and helping. I was sleeping there. I was up with him at night. It was hard, but I am so glad I did it. I would not change that for the world. That's what he wanted. And so we did that. And I love my dad. And I know he's still with me. I feel him often, especially when I'm running. When I got back from Liverpool. This was after the funeral. This was about a week later, because my mum wanted me to stay there. When I got back, he wasn't here. And I was like, where is he? So I rang him, and he'd left. He'd left me. And he had gone to the police and laid charges against me for my self-defense. Yeah. And I was like, okay. So I rang the police the following day. I'm not going to go into the whole thing, what happened afterwards, because that is a whole different story for a whole nother day. So I rang the police, and they sent a police officer to see me. She was a woman, which was great. She took all my details and everything that had happened. Now, trigger warning again. So I'll put my thumbs up again when I finish talking about this bit. When we first met, years ago now, I can't even remember how many years ago it was, we had gone out and he had been drinking excessively and came back to mine, and he tried to essay me. And again, he was very drunk, so I wasn't, and I managed to get away, and I called the police. The police came and they said, do you want to lay charges? And I was like, no, just get him out of my house. I don't want him here anymore. He was very belligerent, and the police took him away. And, you know, the next day, a friend of mine came round, and we were sat in the kitchen talking, and I was obviously devastated. And, you know, and the next thing, there's this massive banging on the front door, and it's him coming back to try and apologize, but he was still wasted. And I'm like, go away. And I had to call the police again to get rid of him. And they said, do you want to lay charges? And I'm like, no, I just want him gone. How stupid of me. But we do that. And it is finished with the traumatic bits. It is part of the trauma bond that happens in relationships when you are with an abusive person. And it can be an abusive male or an abusive female. It really doesn't matter. Although you will find in relationships, the statistics outweigh that the male is the more abusive and controlling. So we talk about narcissistic traits. The person may not be a narcissist, but they have narcissistic traits. And it is very, very rare that a narcissist will actually be diagnosed, because narcissists don't think they're narcissists. So they won't go and be diagnosed, and they won't seek mental health help, because they believe they're always right. They believe that they can do no wrong, that everybody else is beholden to them. So the trauma bond builds at the beginning of the relationship. You know, you fall in love with the person, they love bomb you. And he did. He very much love bombed me. And then stuff happens, and then the makeup, I won't do that again. I'm so sorry I did that. I didn't mean it. And then it's okay for a while, and then stuff happens again. And that sort of cycle becomes faster and faster and shorter. And stupidly, I handfasted him, which is a pagan wedding. And, you know, we lived together for a very long time. Things were okay for a while, but then things became not okay. And he was making me very, very ill mentally and physically. Another trigger warning. So I'll put my thumbs up again in a minute. I lost a baby. And after that, I was in a very deep depression, and it lasted for a long time. Because I was not going to fall pregnant again. I was 42, and we tried, and then I went into perimenopause. So it wasn't going to happen. So finished with that bit now. So yeah, and carry on watching. No more trigger warnings, unless I say so. And yeah. So there was a lot of tumultuous times, and stuff went on and happened. And towards the end, it was incredibly difficult. I do believe that he was cheating on me. I have no evidence of that or proof of that, but there were things and signs that I had seen it. I don't want to talk about that on this live stream though, but now I'm so glad he did leave, because I am happier now than I have been in a very, very, very long time. I have everything I want and need in life right now. Yes, there are things, external things that happen and go on, but they're there for everybody. But my life could not be better, I don't think. So, yeah. So anyway, I had reported this to the police lady. She came round, she was lovely, and I had written in my diary all about back in 2012 when it happened, because it was 2012. It was in my diary. She took a photograph of that. I also had the case number from that in 2012. And then she took all the details from what happened, and she investigated it. I had a couple of witnesses, and she then rang me and said there wasn't enough evidence, and the sergeant wouldn't hand it to the CPS. And that is the story that the vast majority of women are told, is that there isn't enough evidence, so we're not handing it over to the CPS. So the way I explain this to people, and I'm going to give you a brief rundown. I'm going to make it easy and just say 100. Okay, so we work with 100. It's just easier. It's a round number. So let's say there are 100 women who have experienced grape. Of that 100, 50 of them will not report it. Those reasons for not reporting it vary. They may not think that it was grape. It could have been their partner. It could have been, they may feel guilty that it was their fault. They could be embarrassed about it. They could be frightened. They could have been told, don't tell anybody, and so on. So, sorry, I'm just going to put this onto silent. So of those 50 that are left that have not, let's say 50 will go and report it. Of that 50, 45 won't be handed to CPS, 5 will. Of that 5, 1 will reach a conviction. The conviction rate is so low, so low. Grape is one of the only crimes where the victim has to provide all the evidence. The perpetrators won't. They will deny. They will say, oh, it was consensual, and now she's saying it's not consensual because she wants money or whatever. I mean, we see this all the time with people like Andrew Tate, Russell Brand, Marilyn Manson, all of the other very wealthy men who claim that they haven't done that, they're just, being blamed for it. They're being persecuted for it because they're rich and this woman wants money. I do not think that any woman, yet there may be some, but I do not think that most women would actually go through the pain of all of that just for it to be thrown out of court, or for her to be found, as lying or false. False cases of grape are very, very few, very, very few. So I've got statistics here from Refuge. I'm using Refuge because I raise money for them. Maybe I should consider working for them. So I'm just going to read through these stats before I read through the articles. Fact: the police receive a DA-related call every 30 seconds. And it's estimated that less than 24% of DA crime is reported to the police. Most women won't report it because they love that person. They have been love bombed and they have been trauma bonded to that person. And then the gaslighting occurs. And then we have DARVO, deny, attack, reverse victim offender, where the offender, the actual predator, makes themselves out to be the victim. I wouldn't have done it if you hadn't have done this. I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry, it won't happen again. If you didn't do that, I wouldn't have done that. Fact, 1 in 4 women in England and Wales will experience DA in her lifetime. Fact, on average, 1 woman is unalived by an abusive partner or ex every 5 days in England and Wales. Fact, DA is linked to depression and homelessness. And it is. Women who have experienced DA will become depressed because they start to believe it's their fault, that they are obviously doing something wrong, and the emotions, the mood, it just becomes, you're constantly trying to appease the predator and the abuser, and yet you're still being punished for that. Homelessness, women who manage to get away from their abuser often end up on the streets, end up sleeping on a friend's couch, or end up in a refuge centre, and are homeless because they don't have money, because the partner has been controlling them for so long that they have no money. They take all the money, so that victim and children, more than likely, have nothing. Fact, DA can lead women to unalive themselves. Absolutely true. Fact, 20% of children in the UK have lived with an adult perpetrating DA. That's 1 in 5 children. And then we wonder why a certain group of children go on to become criminals or future abusers, where they, perpetuate that in their relationships, or they become criminally active, or they become addicted to substances, and they drop out of school. They don't go to school because they see that their parent, their father, is acting like this, so it becomes normal for them. Excuse me. Just had my dinner. It was very nice. Fact, young girls in the UK report high incidence of SV. 41% of UK girls aged between 14 and 17 in an intimate relationship experience some form of SV from their partner. So basically, they're with pedos. Fact, 93% of defendants in DA cases are male. 84% of victims are female, and yet women are 3 times more likely to be arrested for incidents of abuse. So coming back to what I said earlier about men, not all men. We know that it's not all men, but it is always a man. Just saying that. On this post, and it was on the Labour Party Facebook page, so you can actually go and find this on the Labour Party Facebook page, and I have commented quite a few times on there and sort of been trolling men, saying, but what about men? What do we have? There are the statistics. There are the statistics. What more can we say? DA cost the UK an estimated £23 billion a year. And that's not only on our physical and emotional issues that we go through, because obviously there's going to be a need for hospitalization, doctors, therapy, and so on, possibly not able to work, going into a refuge or onto the homeless register, finding, council housing, social housing for that person, not having money for food, so using food banks, but also our economy. Fact, DA can increase during pregnancy. Absolutely. And one of the worst times for a woman to be unalived is as she is leaving her partner. So often the advice is to leave the partner when they're at work, when they aren't there. So those are the statistics that we're faced with. And I don't want to, it is alarming. It is really, really alarming. And what annoys me is about the fascists is this is, not just happening from, asylum seekers. The percentage of asylum seekers who, are act criminally in that way is so low compared to the white British men or, British men in general. We know that there is a spike in DV, DA, SV, and grape if England lose a football match, because the man who's been at the pub all day watching the sport is completely wasted and miserable, gets home and takes it out on his partner and often on the children as well. So this article is from Sunday, the 14th of December. It's from, I think this is from Sky. Yeah, this is from Sky News. Specialist teams and online investigators deployed across England and Wales to tackle national emergency of violence against women and girls. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood said her measures mean abusers will have nowhere to hide. But the Tories claimed Labour had failed women and broken its promises. If anybody failed women, it was the Tories. So, I love Jess Phillips. Jess Phillips has done so much for women in these situations. There's a group of women in the Labour Party who are actually stick together. Natalie Fleet, my MP for Labour, is actually one of them as well. She has experienced the same as what I have. In fact, you will find that I would say, and I read a statistic somewhere, I can't remember where it was, probably on the WHO website, but the WHO website does say that 1 in 3 women will be victims of rape, whereas Refuge and the UK statistics are 1 in 4. But, when you're looking at WHO figures, you are looking at places in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, in South America and in Southern Asia, which the figures there will be unimaginably high and will not be reported at all. There's just nobody that they can turn to. So I would guesstimate 99% of women have experienced some form of sexualization from men. And that starts off in school. It starts off with boys looking up girls' skirts, going on to, flashing, groping. I've experienced pretty much all of them at some stage in my life. And so it's not just, and it's catcalling as well. I must say, I have noticed that there is very little of that goes on these days. And I would call it out if I was being catcalled. I doubt that would happen now. I'm too old. But if I saw a young girl, schoolgirl, being catcalled by somebody, I would step in. And I think that's something that women should do, is, protect each other, protect your sisters, make sure that especially schoolgirls are not being targeted, because a lot of men do like to, harass schoolgirls because they are easy to manipulate and control. So specialist investigation teams for rape and sexual offences are to be created across England and Wales as the Home Secretary declares violence against women and girls a national emergency. Now, there are already apparently some of these in various police agencies around the country. But as we know, the Tories closed down so many, police stations that many of us don't have anywhere to go. And to get therapy from something like that is so difficult. It's so difficult to get the support that you need. One of my dreams and goals, and the reason I'm studying psychology, is so that I can start a support group for women who have been victims of SA, SV, DV, and rape locally. Like a sort of, AA meeting kind of thing, but it would only be for women because obviously, it's women need to be protected in that way. So, and the other reason is because I, experienced it myself, and feel that I have a lot that I can do to help other women who have gone through this. So yeah, it is a national emergency. Half of the population of the world are victims. Just take that in. Half of the population of the world are victims. Shabana Mahmood said the dedicated units will be in place across every force by 2029. Okay, that's a really long time, but they have to train these people, they have to employ these people. It's not just something that you can put in place tomorrow. So I understand the time frame, but change is needed now, not by 2029. Apparently it's going to be discussed in Parliament on Thursday, so I'm going to keep an eye out for that on Thursday. Luckily, I don't have any appointments on Thursday, so I'll be able to keep an eye out for that. The use of DA protection orders, DAPOs, which had been trialled in several areas, will also be rolled out across England and Wales. They are designed to target abusers by imposing curfews, electronic tags, and exclusion zones. Now, I feel that, and some of you may disagree, but I feel that abusers should be imprisoned for life. That's my opinion. Because once they abuse and get away with it, they will do it again and again and again. I've experienced that. I've had many years ago when I was living in South Africa, I'd lived in Cape Town and moved back to Joburg, and my partner who I was living with in Cape Town was incredibly violent. And when I was living in Joburg, this was a few years later, I got a phone call on my mobile 0120 number, I think it was, for Cape Town. I'm like, oh, this is weird. Anyway, I answered the phone, and it was the current girlfriend of my ex, who asked me, did he ever slap you? I was like, okay, yeah, he did. And I encouraged her to get away from him. Whether she did or not, I don't know. I honestly don't know. But so he was still doing that 6 years later. The orders cover all forms of DA, including economic abuse, coercive and controlling behaviour, stalking, and honour-based abuse. Breaching the terms can carry a prison term of up to 5 years. 5 years. That's all. 5 years. Nearly 2 million will be spent funding a network of officers to target offenders operating within the online space. Teams will use covert and intelligence techniques to tackle violence against women and girls via apps and websites. A similar undercover network funded by the Home Office to examine CA, that's kiddies, has arrested over 1,700 perpetrators. They live among us. They live among us. The links to all of these articles are in the description box. I did link them up before I came live. It is just so sad that the media are decrying this, basically saying that, you know, oh, but what else should we be doing? And don't forget that the target to halve the violence against women and girls in a decade is a Labour manifesto pledge. And I am glad. I mean, the reason that I voted for Labour was mainly for this, because I am an advocate for women and girls who have experienced this. So there's also an article in The Guardian, and I see there's loads of comments, and I am going to come back to them. I'll come to some of the comments in a little while, guys. So I'm not deliberately ignoring the comments. I know this is going to be a very difficult topic for people to understand and deal with from their own experiences. Because as far as I am concerned, being raped or potentially unalived by your partner is terrifying. How do you, when you realize that this is what's happening, when you realize and manage to get out of that, how do you ever go on to trust anybody ever again? So this article is in The Guardian, dated Friday last week, the 12th. Government's process behind tackling violence against women worse than under the Tories. Okay, I beg to differ there, because I don't think the Tories had anything. But anyway, I'll go on to read the article. Leading organisations have criticised the development of the government's flagship violence against women and girls strategy, calling the process chaotic, haphazard and worse than under the Tories. What's chaotic and haphazard is the way that it has been handled in the past 1,000 years, 2,000 years, 5,000 years. Ministers are gearing up for a policy announcement blitz before the publication of the long-awaited plan next week. That's this week. Important voices in the violence against women and girls sector have privately accused ministers of sidelining first-hand expertise and expressed concern that the strategy will not be sufficiently radical to achieve the government's flagship manifesto promise to halve the rate of VAWG in the UK in a decade. Now, that may well be the case. That may well be the case. It doesn't name who these people are, not at the moment. It could further down. I didn't get a chance to read the whole article. Initially expected in spring, the VAWG strategy was delayed until summer and then autumn. On Friday, it emerged that schoolboys would be the target of the strategy, which the BBC reported would be built around the pillars of preventing radicalisation of young men, stopping abusers and supporting victims. But multiple sources from organisations working in the VAWG sector said they had felt sidelined during the devising of the strategy. Again, I don't know who those people are that felt sidelined, but I do believe that it does need to start with educating schoolboys. It really, really does. As I said earlier, it starts with little boys looking up little girls' skirts, pulling their hair, twanging their bra straps. And it goes on from there. And we see it as well with the access to the internet and the manosphere alpha male influencers that call themselves that, like Tate and so many others online, have, some of the stuff that I see, guys, is just hilarious. And I think, these so-called alpha males saying that if you can't control a woman, then she's not your woman. Yeah. So these young lads have access to this content, and perhaps what Australia's done would be a good thing here. I don't know. Let me know how you feel about that. I don't know. And yes, I see you put all children from a young age, Chris C, and I agree with you there. But the problem is, from my own experience as a girl, girls are told, be careful of boys. Don't go into strange men's cars. I mean, we know that women, Moira Hindley, out there, but female perpetrators like that are very few and far between. Yes, there are females, mothers who unalive their children. Topic for a different day, and that is quite high, a high risk category. But that's not my area of expertise, so I don't want to comment on that right now. That's something that I would need to gather evidence for and to do a video or so on. But there is a channel that I watch, Misery Machine, where they do talk about a lot of those cases. So if you do want to, you can go and follow them and have a look at some of the cases that they report on, and they are absolutely vile. And I feel so sad. Not going to talk about that though, because it is too sad. But girls, as I say, are taught to be careful around boys, beware of them. And I remember my dad telling me the same thing, because he knew what boys were like, because he was a boy. And then boys are told, oh, boys will be boys. That needs to end. It does need to end. And girls are told, I remember my dad saying to me, you're not going out like that in a short skirt, or, we shouldn't have to, worry about things like that. Men should not sexualize us in the way that they do. And I there is a place for adult entertainment in the world, but there is too much adult entertainment addiction. I've seen it. And a lot of men who watch that kind of content think that all women are like that. I see the weirdest stuff online from incels, involuntary celibates, for those who don't know. And one the other day, so if you've got young kids around you, send them out the room. But one the other day was moaning that a woman's bits are not attractive and should be more like a man's bits. Because they see adult content where these women have these bits that are perhaps prosthetically worked on, and expect all women to have that. Sorry, coming back to the article now. One figure in the sector comparing the past 18 months with the process before the strategy produced in 2019 by the Tory government said, it is worse than under the Tories. In fact, we were so much better off under the Tories. You could get a meeting, they engage with you. This whole process has been incredibly haphazard. Again, it's not saying who these people are. So we don't know who they are. Another figure in the sector noted that after the unaliving of Sarah Everard, the Tory government reopened a public consultation. We saw more senior ministers and had more contact with the Secretary of State under the last government, they said. Ministers like Alex Davis-Jones and Jess Phillips have clearly worked hard on this, but it feels like the machine has worked against them. So anyway, you can go and read those articles. I am glad that they are putting that into, every police station. I really am. I was lucky when it happened to me when I lived in my local town, because I was able to run up the road to the police station because it was just up the road from where I lived at the time. So I'm just going to read some of these comments from this post on Facebook. Sorry, bear with me, guys. Okay, this one is, I would have assumed this was already a thing. Also, I'm assuming men will just have to deal with it themselves. That was from a man. And a person has noted here, does this include violence to trans women too? And I agree with that, absolutely, that it should be given to trans women as well, because as far as I'm concerned, trans women are women. Sorry, I'm just looking at, going through some of the comments here. Oh, and somebody's put, come over to the racist side of things. Will this team have Urdu and Arabic translators embedded? Bear with me. Another one from a man, obviously racist. Will these experts be on the ground in France before the boats take off? They used to have them already, CID and vice squads. Well, no, because vice squads, managed sort of looking at prostitution, and, they didn't deal with DV. And then another person's comment, another man, Oldham, Rotherham, Telford, etc. Some areas I suggest you place additional resources. Yes, we know that there were grooming gangs in those areas, but there are grooming gangs everywhere. And the vast majority of grooming gangs are white British men. Somebody's put, that'll be a lot of internal investigations then. I agree with that, because we do know that there is a huge amount of misogyny within the police force, especially the Met. Sorry, bear with me. Another guy, reinventing the wheel soundbite, as all forces already have these units. Not all of them, no. Prevention is always better than cure, says another man. Another man has come on and said, another racist, but will they be allowed to question and investigate the right people? Another man, do they have interpreters as well? Somebody's put on here, I like this. Might I suggest starting with the Reform Party and EDL? Agreed. So yeah, you can go on there and have a look at those comments yourself. But I mean, I was watching something last night, and it takes up to 3 years for these things to get to court, and in that time, I think it was a Channel 4 documentary that I was watching. I will put the link up to that on here afterwards, because I did watch it last night. And 3 years to get to court. And this woman is trying to heal. And, there's obviously have a woman there who is talking about it, and she's, voiceover and in shadow and so on. She doesn't want to be seen, rightly so. And she says herself, I wish I hadn't have gone ahead with this, because it takes that long to get into court. So I'm going to come to some of the comments, guys. So bear with me. Bear with me. Pete, hello, my love. You've been sleeping for hours. Lucky you. Chrissy, I know I see you've been putting a load of comments up, and I really do appreciate that. I really do, because I know you've got a lot of knowledge of this. Again, go to any VP wing in any UK prison, and the majority of prisoners are middle-aged or elderly white men. That's a fact. Absolutely. Absolutely, it's a fact. Yeah, it is. As you say, it was just a domestic. Yeah. Elle says, maybe a little bit older, that age your mom sends you to the shops, but I was very small kid, looked about 3 years younger by height. Yeah, my mum and dad used to send us to the shops as well, but we grew up in a village. When we moved to South Africa, again, it was a small sort of village that we lived in. Tories only ever talk, never do. Absolutely lost missionary. Totally agree with you. Chrissy, I'm looking back at my childhood. I wasn't really taught about stranger danger when I lived in Germany, but as soon as we moved back to the UK, it was drilled into me. Yeah, it feels like the UK and probably America have been, two of the worst environments in the world for that kind of thing. I was about 8. He wasn't initially in his car when he said he was a copper. I walked away. Later is the moving car bit. Wow, I'm sorry that happened to you. Lost missionary, fuck that, dicks are ugly. Yeah, I said that many times, many times. I saw a story today. I forgot it. Did I save it on my phone? Because I save a lot of stuff on here when I want for videos, for upcoming videos. It was one of those, not that one. Am I the a-hole or something? It was about, no, I didn't save it. It was about a man complaining that his wife had bought toys for herself, and he felt that it was poison and the devil's work. I commented, tell us you don't know how to bring a woman to orgasm without telling us you don't know how to bring a woman to orgasm. Anyway. Scrolling up here, a guy tried to grab me from his moving car at my local shops, claiming to be a copper. The ladies in the fruit shop took me in and called the real police. Yeah, Elle, you're so lucky. So lucky. Both boys and girls need educating from the get-go about the issues peculiar to their own sex and to each other's. Absolutely, I totally agree with you. But I think that, girls are already taught to be aware and afraid of boys and men, whereas boys are not. Yeah, I too hate that saying, Chris C, boys will be boys. It's an awful saying, isn't it? It's absolutely awful. Toxic masculinity, absolutely Diz. Toxic masculinity, the manosphere, the alpha male thing, it's all just toxic. It is all very, very toxic. Educate all children from a young age, however, they will still be influenced by family attitudes and online morons. Absolutely, Chris C. But I think the more they can teach it in school, the better. It's, what was I watching? I watched so much crime stuff. It could have been a film. But it was recent. And a boy was being bullied, and another by a group of boys, and another boy went up to him and said, look, leave this young lad alone. And most other people were just walking past. And, things like that, boys need to step in. Boys that are aware and are there to help women and girls need to step in. The same with men. Men need to step in as well and, protect other women. Let's have a look. Pete Dencart, I have learned that trust is pointless due to it being a case of imposing your own self-expectations onto someone else, and the fact that we are all human means it will only lead to disappointment. Yeah, I think there is that. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. The only person you can really trust is yourself, isn't it? We can say, trust your parents, but we are also very aware that parents can be abusive and do horrible things. So I trust my cats. Even though they fart in my face. Oh my God, they stink. It's because they eat meat. They absolutely stink. The abuser will not be required to register their details with the police, so I can't see how they will enforce the conditions imposed by the courts. I think it comes down to Chris C looking at Clare's law again and, you know, adding to that, because, you know, what I went through, that person should be on that list. Are they? I don't know. It's something I will check at some stage, but it is just, it's wrong, isn't it? It's absolutely wrong that women don't have access to that. But the other thing as well that comes into play here is that the abuser, the male abuser, will turn around to the woman and say, oh, she was my crazy ex. So if you meet a man who says, oh, that was my crazy ex, take a double think about it. Maybe go and speak to the crazy ex, because the crazy ex probably wasn't crazy and probably experienced DA, DV, etc. Because in my experience, I'm talking about my own personal experience, when I was told, oh, that was my crazy ex, those women who I have later spoken to were not the crazy ex. They were being abused. So the DA prevention orders are similar to the S harm prevention orders, where breaches can result in a prison sentence of up to 5 years. However, unlike the S offenders, DA domestic. Yeah. My mental health assessment started talking about a family member. They looked as if they were going to step in. I said, no, I'm away from them and it'll break up the family. I climbed up on subject as a result. That's we do, especially within a family, you know. And again, it's that protection, isn't it, of family. And it's only when we get older that we realize that we could have done something about it. Sorry, I'm coming down to the bottom. Clare's law provides details from the police national computer. There is no national register for DA like there is for those convicted of S or terrorist offences. Yeah. Smelly cat. Yeah. Definitely. I do sing that song. I do sing that song a lot. Phoebe was my favourite character from Friends. So yeah, it is a song that I sing a lot. There's a story in The Guardian today where a teenage boy has been arrested on suspicion of unaliving a 9-year-old girl in Somerset. There was, I'm going to be doing a video on it at some stage, a young lad who had raped a 14-year-old. He was also underage, and she fell pregnant and had to have a termination because of that. But she wasn't the only one. There were other children as well. Clare's law is only really effective if the abuser is known to the police by the name given. Exactly. That's it. I mean, if they change their name or use a different name, or, you know, how do we know? I watched a film last night. I don't know the name of it because it was on YouTube, but I'll pop a link into this video as well because it was free. And it was based on a real story. And man and woman, he was from a wealthy family, living together, married, and, you know, professed love for each other. She fell pregnant. He was a golfer. And this is based on a true story. So it is actual, you know, I'm sure it's out there. So he was training to be on the PGA. And while she was pregnant, he started having an affair with a lass that he was working with, much younger, and was telling her that he loved her and that he wanted to leave his wife. His wife obviously knew nothing about this. And then he staged a break-in and tried to unalive his wife. But luckily he was caught. He actually thingied her several times, and she was pregnant, and the baby did survive. And he was imprisoned. He was found guilty. I think he actually did end up pleading guilty. And she had to go every sort of, yeah, he did end up pleading guilty, because then he kept getting, you know, he had a prison term and then on parole that he was going to be released on. So she went to every single parole hearing and told her story of what he'd done and how he'd, you know, hurt her, so that he stayed in prison for all that time. Diz, yeah, WTF, that's today's, you know, title really, is what the fuck is wrong with people? What, you know, and that is a real story. That's not, you know, I'm not making that up. I will link that. I will go, when we're finished now, I will go and link it into the description box. So it's, you know, it's worth watching. It is a good watch. The acting, you know, they're unknown actors, but it's an American film, but it is worth a watch. But there are so many actual instances of things like that that happen. You know, there was one that I was watching, a channel that I watched called Bizarre Bazaar, as in a, you know, going to a place, Bizarre Bazaar. And he's British, and he finds these cases from Eastern Europe. And this guy, I can't remember his name now, unalived 3 women at different times and chopped up their bodies and disposed of the body bits elsewhere, and also down the sink, and you know, and oh yeah, and up in the loft as well. He put some bits up in the loft, and then and he was in an apartment block, and there was a hotel, there were the smell and everything, and he was eventually found because of that. And he was just like, yeah, I did it, you know, quite happy that he'd done it. He was from an abusive background. He was an alcoholic. He, you know, he had suffered a lot in his childhood, but that does not, you know, not everybody who has suffered in their childhood goes on to be an abuser. Penalties for each and all forms of abuse should, as Chris says, be massive and mandatory. Won't stop every case, but may make some of these sick bastards think twice. Absolutely. It is grim, Diz. It is very, very grim. Some good news. David Norris, who was convicted of the unaliving of Stephen Lawrence, has been denied parole. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And I also read today, while I was waiting for my flu jab, I was supposed to get it last night, but they'd run out at the chemist. They hadn't bothered to phone me and tell me. So I managed to book to a chemist in the local town and managed to get there today and get one done before I went for my eye test. Got new glasses coming next week, guys. So I shall be showing them off. I'll be able to see. Yeah, the guy that ploughed into the poor people in Liverpool, he was found guilty, wasn't he? Or did he admit to being guilty? But he was crying, wasn't he, in the while he was on the dock, in the dock. And he also had previous. I was reading, he had previous for anger and violence and so on. And he'd been, I think it was 30 years that he'd been in therapy and so on. So yeah. And some more good news. The UK is set to rejoin the EU's Erasmus student exchange program from January 2027. Oh, that is brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant. So Diz, is that 21 and a half years for the guy from Liverpool? I can't remember his name now. His name's escaped me. But that's excellent news about the Erasmus exchange. Hopefully this will be the start to a new, you know, way to come back to the EU. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? I was having an argument online again with somebody about that earlier. They were saying, oh, you know, but we don't want to rejoin the EU. And I'm like, you're a boomer. We want to rejoin. I mean, I'm Gen X, okay? But I hate the fact that my ability to travel freely through Europe has been taken away. I absolutely hate that. I think it's wrong. Before I came back to the UK, I was thinking of going to live in Italy. And because I had the passport, I would have been able to. Granted, I would have had to get, permanent status and so on, but we can't do that now, can we? I've asked for the Attorney General to look at the sentence handed down for the Liverpool terrorist under the unduly lenient sentencing scheme. 21 and a half years is not enough in my eyes. Absolutely, Chris. Do you have a link? Has somebody set up a link for that or something that we can, Paul Doyle. Yes, that's it, Diz. Thank you. Is there a link? Have we got a petition? Anybody set up a petition for that? Gen X does rule. We do rule. Yeah, there's a couple of women I follow on Facebook as well who are Gen Xers who are just hilarious and so funny. And I think Gen X, we're the sort of age group who went through so much shit that we don't care about the shit that we get going on now. I mean, we do care for the future. We care about things like, climate change and, abuse against women and girls. But the generation before us didn't sort of do anything about that. We're the ones that have started to make the changes. We did what we could against those that came before us. I'm not saying all boomers. So yes, Pete's, definitely. Definitely. Thank you for sharing that link, Chris C. Let's see if I can copy the link. I've copied the link, so I will pop it into the description box afterwards as well. Some boomers are okay. Absolutely. Absolutely, Elle. Completely agree with you. Diz, you're an elderly Gen X. Yeah. I think that, we know that not all boomers are like that. We know that not all Gen Xers are as free as, the majority of us are. But, being accused of us fucking it up for the younger ones. No, it was the generations before us that fucked it up. It wasn't us. It wasn't Gen X. We've been trying to fix things. When you look at government, I can't remember who was saying this the other day. I watched that much stuff. But the people that are in power, that run the government, are generally boomers. The younger people are not in power. So it comes from that perspective. So hopefully, as we move forwards in the future, we will get some Gen Xers in power who can, try and sort out this shit that these idiots have done to the world. Chrissy, you're a proud millennial. Brilliant. Which I put bloomers and not boomers. Okay. He was convicted of GBH, which is covered under the scheme. Starmer is Gen X. Isn't he 61? So if he's 61, he would have been 1963, because 64, wasn't it? Hi, Billy, lovely to see you. Yeah, I know that the big podcast was on. It's so difficult to find a time because I know that Graham's going live with Ollie, isn't he, at 7:30, and then Max is live after that. So I wanted to try not to stand on other people's toes. Obviously, we work as a team, don't we? We're sort of all of the same ilk, the same mind, the same. We're all trying and aiming for the same things, I think, in life. Some of us are a bit more insane than others. Some of us believe in aliens, and ghosts and things. My kids think I'm as cool as fuck, so that makes me a total success. Absolutely. Diz, 1965. Okay, so he is a Gen Xer. Yeah, my advice, I joined the Greens. I left Labour when they started with the whole DLA PIP thing, benefits thing. I just thought, no, this is not what I voted for. I voted for my interests being looked after from my perspective of being poorly. So I left Labour then. And then when I saw Zach Polanski, it was before the election of the Green Party, I saw him and I thought, yeah, this is the guy I want to vote for. So I joined the Greens so I could vote for him. And I like him. I do. I really like him. He's eloquent. He is quick with his responses. He doesn't like some people do. And he has vision. Whether or not he'll get into power, who knows? You know, whether the Greens will get into power or not, who knows? But, you know, the changes that the Green Party want to bring in are far more radical than what the Labour Party have done so far. As for your party, I just think that that's a shambles. I do. I think there's been so much, you know, disagreement between the leaders of the party, and I just think that I don't think it's going anywhere. I really don't. I think that Corbyn's finished. I do. Yeah. Hi, Daily Blase. Lovely to see you. Thank you for joining. Boomers made the best music, all the classics. Well, Pete's. I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know. Soundgarden, Metallica. Who else? Susie. No, Susie was a Gen X boomer. So was Adamant. There's a lot of stuff from the 90s. The Foo Fighters. They're all my age. Apologies. Actually, he's a boomer, 1963. Okay, Diz, thank you. I thought he was 1963. I had that in the back of my mind. Thank you, Diz. But yeah, I mean, the Beatles, the Stones, you know, all the classics, Deep Purple, Ozzy, Black Sabbath. Yeah, brilliant music. The whole new album, sort of new wave of British heavy metal, you know, was brilliant. But then, you know, each generation has had the music that suits that generation, I think. Right, guys, it's 7:15. Does anybody want to ask any questions or, you know, something that I can talk about for the next 15 minutes? Elle, you're 1973. You are definitely a Gen Xer. Age is irrelevant because nobody asks to be born. Or do we? Or do we? I know people have differing views on life after death and so on, and is there life after death? I believe that there is. I'm not a Christian, I'm a pagan, but I believe that in some form our energy does go on. We are energy. And that energy, when we pass from this world, does move on. There is a channel that's called Really Haunted. If you are interested in ghosty stuff, have a look at that channel. He's British, and the paranormal activity that is happening in his home is just unbelievable. I mean, really, it's terrifying. Yeah, have a look at that and then tell me that there isn't something else that exists beyond death. Stardust to stardust. Physical body, yes, but we were stardust. We were, you know, we are carbon-based beings. But I do believe that there is, that our energy is connected in some way. And I do think that quantum physics will catch up with it eventually. And that there will be this sort of scientific way to measure it eventually. Let's talk about the new scooter in the Diz household. Now, that is good, feel good news. Oh, you've got a new scooter, Diz. Brilliant. Well done. Alex, would your women's support group include intersex women? Now, that is a very, very good point, Alex. I have thought about this, and it's a very contentious issue because I think it depends on the women within the group and the trauma that they've experienced, in a perfect world, yes. In a perfect world, yes, because I view trans women as women. But when you are dealing with other women and what they have been through, so I don't know how that would be overcome. That's something that I would need to, look into. But also, with my degree, I want to, just so everybody knows, I have actually deferred my degree for the year till next year. It was just becoming too much for me. But I do want to, hopefully when I get my doctorate, go onto the academic side and start looking into research and so on, because I think that there's, and again, with trans women and trans men, it comes down to education. When you've got boomers, not all boomers, and some Gen Xers saying trans women are not women, it puts the fear into women unnecessarily. I'm a Gen Xer, and I was going out to clubs in the 80s, in the 90s. There were trans women in the nightclubs that I went to, and not once was there a problem with any trans woman. So yeah, I think it is very, very sort of an area. It could well be, and this is just a thought, to have, two separate groups that, again, it's sort of, we need that intersectionality, don't we? We need that. Not much info is out there about intersex people. Absolutely, Alex, absolutely. And that is needed. That is definitely needed. Intersex is not the same as trans. It needs to be an education. It needs to be, within children. Hopefully it's something that they will look at. But I know from my own perspective, if I was going into a private practice and going to be doing therapy, I would not treat men. And I have that right as a therapist to choose to do that. But I would definitely help trans women. But I would also hope that trans women would become therapists for trans women, because it always helps to relate to that person who has had that experience. BetterHealth.com is an American-based website, and you can access therapy through that. I don't know how much it costs, but it's a sort of thought that I'm having of hopefully one day working on there. And they match you up with a therapist to suit you. So if you are gay, they will match you up with a gay therapist. If you are pagan, they will match you up with a pagan therapist. I mean, I, as pagan, would not want to have a full-on Christian therapist. It wouldn't help me in the slightest. So I think there has to be a route for each person for them to have the therapy that they deserve. I hope that makes sense. One day there'll only be people. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm trans. Alex isn't witchy. Yes. Sorry. Yes. Yes. I do apologize. Yes. I do know that. Draka is trans. Yeah. Sorry for mistaking that. But yeah, it is non-binary, there is so much out there that needs to be looked at from a therapy side of things, and for too long there hasn't been that. I would say that gay men were probably accepted earlier than lesbian women. When I look back at the last 100 years, in the early 20th century, women and men were not allowed to be gay. They were, had to be, a man and a woman, heterosexual. They had to be heterosexual. Whereas those different sexualities have been around forever. The Greeks, the Romans, they all, you know, it makes me angry that people can't just accept people for who they are and what they are. It makes me angry that the far right only look at the far right as being them, and anybody who else who isn't them is wrong. As in, you know, I can't remember where I was reading. It was another thing that I was reading earlier on as well. Did I save it to my phone? So much today when I was out and about. Hang on. No, I didn't save it. I think I was reading it and then I went into an appointment. I've forgotten my train of thought now. I don't care who or what you are. Question is, are you an arsehole? Absolutely. Absolutely. Are you an arsehole? Lesbianism wasn't recognised in the UK until 1992. Yeah. I remember working with some lesbian women and a few gay men back before, I mean, in South Africa. I don't know when it was recognised in South Africa, actually, but I remember I started working for this firm in 1993, and there were quite a few gay and lesbian women working there, and men. And then even prior to that, I was working in a music store, and one of the women who ran the shopping centre was gay, and her partner actually propositioned me, and I felt so flattered. She was gorgeous, you know, she was absolutely beautiful, and ended up dating her cousin for a while who lived in the UK, and I was in a band at the time. It was all very complex, and yeah. When I write my memoirs, that'll be in there. That'll be in there. Scotland maybe not recognised, but was certainly existed. Trans existed. I'm not waiting for idiots to recognise that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Diz, for being here. Thank you for being a spanner tonight. Really appreciate it. Guys, I am going to head off because Graham is going live shortly, isn't he, with Ollie for, what's it, Global Politics? Or is it American? I can't remember. I can't remember. He has that many shows. First legal definitions in UK given to gay men was during Henry VIII's time, I think. Yeah. Alex, lovely to see you. Draka, Chris, Lost Missionary, Pete's Music, Elle, Diz, Peter, Chris C. I do geopolitics. Thank you, Chris C. Thank you. Sophie, thank you for joining us. I didn't see you there. Your partner won a scooter in a competition yesterday. Oh, wow. That's awesome. That is awesome. Congratulations. So I will see you all on Thursday. I will do a live stream again on Thursday. No idea. I had a whole load of other things that I was going to talk about today, but I didn't get to it. So sort of got stuck on this one. But I will see you all hopefully on Thursday. I'll probably catch you in Politics Social at some stage. I've got stuff to do this evening, but have a wonderful evening and stay blessed. Mwah. Bye all.